first name like Gaius,
Golden.
Larry LeBlanc.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Born in Cape Ogre.
Cape Ogre itself, or in one of the back coves?
Where the back road, Bucket Cove it was called. 3 houses.
Who lived there?
Who lived there? I don't know. I moved to the school so I was only 6 years old. And stayed with my grandmother, where the senior citizen home is now. I stayed there for 7 years. And I made my first communion and everything over there. Then when I got to be 14, they didn't want to leave me go out, so I came back to my father and mother in Ayrshire.
And they were living in Ayrshire at that time?
They were living in Ayrshire. They were living where Buddy Reefer had his big house there, you know.
Oh, yeah.
They had different places in Ayrshire. They live on top of Devon's Hill. And then I went to school till I was 17. I got my grade 10. Then I quit. Then I found a boyfriend and I got married at the age of 22. First boyfriend. Waited 5 years for him. And I'm still here in this house. What is it? What was it? I was 22 and I'm 81. That's how long I've been in this house. What else do you want to know?
So what do you remember about Bucket Cove?
I don't remember too much. I know there was only 3 houses and they were Gaeshes, old folks anyway. There was only 3 houses. It was outside, way back in Cape Ogre, you know, Richard's Cove, that where they had to pick the blueberries. That was around there somewhere, but I don't know. I was only 6, so I don't remember. They came and got me with a horse and a wagon. And then I'd only come home like once in a great while.
Was there a road going out of there?
Was there a road? Yeah, there was a road. Not for cars, but for a horse and sleigh or a horse and wagon. That's the way I went to the school.
And they were all Gaeshes?
And they were mostly Gaeshes and Reshores. Peter Reshores and George Reshore. You know, they lived on this side then. And Burke's, one family of Burke, they Burke is in-laws, they were from on there. This was the city of Cape Ogre that they're in now.
The city of Cape Ogre.
Capital.
So there were Reshores and Gaeshes and
Gaeshes, and one family of Burke that I knew of, but the rest were mostly.
And you said they were mostly older people?
Yeah. Well, some of them didn't move. It takes like Lily, Davy, and them. They got married and they stayed in Cape Ogre. But if we had been a decent place. But then they went to the States with his mother and father, and he didn't want to stay. So they came back over here and they stayed where Puck is now. There was a big house, you know.
Mm.
And that's where they stayed. So then he didn't want to go back to the States, so we ended up then fishing around here.
So that's how they went from Bucket Cove to the States?
To the States, and from the States to Ayrshire. Oh my God, it must be 74 years. Well, Ned, she was pregnant for Ned, the dead then, you know, Ned's dwelling there. The year they moved on this side, they moved in a big house to take care of an old man.
You're talking about Emmerday's parents?
Emmerday's parents.
So they were originally living in Cape Ogre to start with?
Oh yeah.
In
Oh,
Bucket
yeah.
Cove
Before they
or
went
in
to
Cape
the
Ogre?
States. They went to the States. Julia was in the States, and most of them were in the States. And when Claire was born, she didn't want to stay in the States, so they came down over here. They didn't go back. They would have liked to stay up there, but they shouldn't have come down for anything. They should have stayed where they were.
Okay, so tell me about the Emmerday's family now. Who was in the family? Who was his parents, first of all?
His parents?
Mm.
His parents' name, I mean?
Mm.
Well, it was Joe LeBlanc. Joe and Mariah. She was a Muri from the borough there. And of course he was a LeBlanc from Cape Ogre.
Mm-hmm. And how many was there in Emmerday's family?
In Emmerday's family, there were 13. There were 13 people.
So there was Emmeday and
That was Emmeday, that was Albert, that was Ned, that was Joseph, of the boys, and then the 5 girls, I got the picture of there's only Julia living, and she's 91, Julia, right at home there. Fox mother. And the rest, well, they're all dead. There was one in Halifax, Lady White, and there was one in the States, there to Monjo, Isabel, and then there was Eileen there to Sammy Dino, that would be Orel's mother, or Dino, you know. And then, what other girl was there? There was 5 girls. There were the pictures in my album, I can't remember. They're all dead, but Buddha.
What about your parents? What was your father's name? Your
My
mother's?
father's name was Alphonse Gayesh. My mother's name was Alexina Bona in the school. Formerly, well, they had just moved to the schools when I went and lived over there. But they were born in Cape around. And we were 6 of us. Over 5 or 6 of us. I'm the oldest of the family.
What was,
I only have one sister living on Mir. She lives in Sydney. And nurses? Nurses Gaia, you know him.
so, did you know your grandparents on your father's side?
On my father's side, I know them, yeah, I know them.
What were their names?
My grandfather, where the Woobies are now, there, that big house that was there, nurses owned that, and my grandfather stayed with us there when we first bought that. There was a kitchen in the basement. My grandfather, his name was Norbert Gayesh. He stayed with us a long time ago, but I was living in the school then. I only saw him when I came in the big city of Ayrshire.
And he lived in Bucket Cove all his life?
In Bucket Cove all his life. No pension, nothing. We had to keep the old folks for nothing. Now you want to pay your board and they still don't want you. It's true. I got 5, but I mean, there's no really place. I could move to James, but James, I'd be alone. Does the same. James not going to stay in with me, so I might as well stay here.
So, what was your grandmother's name?
My grandmother from the school?
No, from the Goyesh.
I don't know what his name is. My mother's name was Virginia, and now would be Virginia, and my grandfather was Modeste Bona. That Bona fellow there, you know, that's taken for his picture on the paper this morning. Well, his father is my cousin, Raymond in the wheelchair.
It's your first cousin?
Edmund, his father was my mother's brother.
Oh, yeah, okay. And but on your father's side, what was your?
And on my father's side, there was 3 or 4 girls, and there was one brother. That is Gayesh. And then there was one married in Lower River, Mary Ann, and there was one married in Poirier. Our Thomas was married to Arthur Poirier. And there was one married in Lower River, or Evanston, whatever they call it. Married to, there was one married in Sydney.
Can you go back farther? Do you know the names of your great grandparents or? Are you related to the Goyeshes in Cape Ogden, Clarence?
Yes, in Cape Ogden. They were all related. They were all related in some form or another, second cousin or something. I have no more. On my mother's side, there's only May Berkeley, and she'd be my cousin. Her mother was my mother's sister, Diana. That's what extends to Archie's mother, you know. And the rest. Once I got on this side, once I got married, I didn't visit too much to school.
Yeah. So I've heard it said that the Goyeshes are not French, but they were Basque.
Were they?
Did you ever hear that? Did you ever hear any stories about that or anything?
too many Goyashes around, you know. Some of them we used to call them Goyash, you know. But there's Goyecch, so there's not too many of them left. Well, there was Ida Stone, she was a Goyash.
Did they all speak French?
Oh yeah, no English. They didn't talk English. Half of them couldn't, my father and mother couldn't read or write.
They
Never went to school.
never went to school. And on the other side of the family?
And on the other side of the family, well, they could talk home because they went away young. On my Emmett side, they all went away young, you know. They were a gang of them. Went away 14, you know, went to Halifax, most of them.
When did you learn to speak English?
Where did I learn? I don't know, by myself when I went to school.
When you went to school?
Hey?
When you went to school?
I went to school, it's the only time. I don't think I could speak English when I went to the school, well, they weren't speaking English either. So I didn't have no, Father Poirier was related to me. My grandmother's brother. I didn't catch that, I can talk French too, you know, I learned the French, of course. My French.
Did you go to school before you left Bucket Cove?
No, you had to be 7 years old to go to school, to start school then, and then I was only 6. So I started school in the schools. And when I left the school, I went to school, I finished my grade 10 up here. I could have taught in Cape Over for a year with a paper from Ned Benoit's father, you know, that was inspector of school then. But I didn't bother. You had to go 1 year and then he'd give you a paper to go to normal school in rural. After that, you know, if you wanted to continue, you could teach in grade 10, it's not like today.
So you got your grade 10 at the convent?
Yeah, and Mother and the day.
Did you board there?
No, oh no, I was staying over here with my parents. No, I went to school, grade 10, in the old convent that burned there. We had a class up there. Yeah.
So what were they doing in Bucket Cove? They were fishermen?
Fishing, picking berries, selling berries by the barrel. They'd come from God knows where. The men would leave in the morning with a pillow or something on their back, and they'd come back around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, full, you know. And then when they'd have so many barrels picked up, some people from somewhere picked up 10 cents a gallon.
They come to Bucket Cove and buy the berries?
Bucket Cove and all the rest, Richard's Cove and Charles Forest Cove, the one that's there now. Everybody picked up berries. And the kids too, as soon as they could walk.
Oh.
But
What kind of berries? What kinds of berries?
Foxberries and blueberries and cranberries. All kinds of berries.
They pick berries and they fish. Do they fish all year long?
Yeah, they fished. Well, they used to start for the lobster fishing, and then they go out 4 o'clock in the morning for bait, you know, to get bait. It was a hard drag. But you had no money. I remember myself, some older than me living, but you had a $20 bill in November and you hated to change it because the only money you were getting until the 15th of April, the first lobster check. $20 a day is only change.
Lobster season started April 15th. How long did it last?
And then when that would be over, well, they'd have nets for herring and mackerel and all kinds of fishing.
So you're fishing herring and what about during the fall?
And in the fall, they went to North City to work at the Landry Brothers, and because Leonard Brothers in North Sydney, because he was good at everything, at carpenter work. And there was 2 fish sheds down there in the wharf. Everything is gone. Yeah.
fish, but did they fish during the winter? During the winter itself?
No, but you had all kind, you would buy right cheap, you know. You'd buy a big barrel of apples for $3. And we played cards for them, and we played cards for chocolate bars at night. That was our pastime. There was no, only a battery radio. We had no electricity. So we had more fun then than you have now. There's 9 houses gone from me here there. From here to the big hill, there's 9 houses gone.
Who was in the house?
Next door was Fonciterio. Next to Fonciterio was the Bouchers. The son was down there to give the graduation awards to one that goes to college in Moncton. Bailey Boucher, he had dinner here. And then next to the Boucher there was a Vigno, Casimir Vigno. And then there was Raymond Landry. Next from Landry there was Charles LeBlanc, there was old Mrs. Ranson, there was Casimir LeBlanc, on the other side there was Sammy Vigno. I counted them one day, there were 9 houses. And if we had had a fish plant in the cove like we were going to get it, those 9 houses would still be there. This one was sold too, you know. But the lawyer in Port Huckabee, they changed their mind about building the fish plant in Taylor. So we were either allowed to keep our house, or they were only giving you, what, $8,000 to get another one. We had already bought a piece of land next to Bucks. That's where our remedy was going to build our somebody's house. But when they offered if he wanted his house back, he grabbed the house as it was.
They only offered $8,000.
Yeah, he could have built it himself, but it would have been a small place, just for him and I. The kids were all gone.
And how many wharves were down there?
Wharf? Well, you mean right down here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there was only one wharf and a fish shed that he had and a boat shed and one shed on the road there. And then the Bouchers had their own wharfs. And after the Bouchers, where the breakwater was, they had a wharf on this side then. And the rest didn't fish, I don't think. Sammy Vigno never fished. He bought the fish. We by the big hill there. They had people coming from Guysborough there to buy fish from him.
Did he have a fish plant there or a shed or something?
Oh yeah. He had a little shed and he'd buy from the Guysborough people and all that. And he was getting so much a pound, I guess, for like they were getting. There was no big stuff like premium and.
Did he buy from Emily?
Yeah. There was a lot of lobsters. Then you would come home with you used to come with dories full of lobster. You could see them right on top of the water. They got some stolen. It's who in the name of God did that anyway? It wouldn't be from around here anyway.
Oh, I don't.
No, they came by boat, I think, or by truck. Nobody knows.
And how much were they getting for the lobsters?
Oh God, no. We weren't getting the price they are today. But anyway, I have no idea. I didn't bother. I had enough to do on the inside. I didn't go. I don't even know how much they were getting. I knew you had to buy on credit during the winter to pay in the spring when you start fishing. You know, by the time you were finished paying, then you were starting back on the following year. But there was no old age pension, no disability pension, no pensions of any kind.
So when you came down the cove, how was the cove different than it is now?
Oh, down the cove, it was okay, you know, because there was, well, James's house wasn't there, but there was a house everywhere. There was at Puck's, there was Uncle Daddy's, then after Uncle Daddy's there was John Terrio's, where George, the house close to the road there.
You said that Puck's house was bigger than it is now. There's a big house there?
Right.
At Puck?
That big house, was the movie there?
No, at Puck's you said there was a big house there.
Puck's?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was that big house. It belonged to an old man that was looking for a family to take care of him, and that's the reason why they moved from Kilcover and landed there.
What was the old fellow?
The old fellow's name was, oh my God, never met the old fellow, but he was supposed to be a cop one day anyway, and it wasn't easy. They used to go there, the young boys there, Uncle Raymond that died there, my Uncle Raymond. Was 93 there, the year before that. He was working around here there. And they used to go there at night and see him, and one night he was going to shoot them. What was his name? I don't remember. I never met him. I didn't know what the LeBlanc then.
What about the Terrios? And they tell me that that house was bigger than it is now.
The Terrios, well, that house has been there ever since I know. And right now they have that old barn that were Armand lives in.
It was always the same size that you can remember?
Yeah, and she brought up the big family, I done John in that house there. So close to the road, eh? Funny that the cars don't hit that. George owns that now, he's retiring this month from. He's manager of the Royal Bank in any age. I tell you, they're all the age of my children.
What about, was there anything down the cove that's not here now? Was there a store or anything?
No, well, what you call it, the way he has Alphonse Richard as his trailer, you know, there in the front. There was a big house, and they had a little store, that's all. Otherwise, you had to go to Joe Sampson, you know, at the corner there, where Nelda Brun owns that now. That was the first store we had to go to. Well, he'd give you credit all winter. And then when it came to Easter, well, you were waiting for the bounty, so you could get about $12 so you could buy yourself some eggs and a chicken for Easter. They'd walk. There was no plow. There was trustees of the road, and on Sunday after church, one trustee had to go from house to house to get somebody to plow themselves a little route to go to the post office. The old post office down the low road there where Freedom is. They weren't rich. But anyway, survived.
What was the bounty? You said the bounty at Christmas.
The mounties, we never heard it too much. There were no mounties were living around here.
No, the bounty you said at Christmas.
The bounty was $12 for the captain of the boat and $11 for the helper. If you owned your boat, you were getting $1 more. That was for the year. Fisherman's bounty.
Who paid that?
Government, I guess. Paid from the government. But you had to wait some time till the month of March, because Easter was always like around March, eh? It was then before you got it, you know. Around Easter, so that's why every day you'd see them going by, walking to the maid to see if their check was there. But you would get quite a bit for your check if you didn't owe it. Quite a bit of difference today, eh?
What would you be able to get for the check? What would you be able to get?
Oh.
What would you be able to get in terms of groceries for?
Well, when you get you probably had to give it to the storekeeper that you owed it to, and then you start taking back on credit for when the fishing would start. That's the way it went. I don't know. I didn't do the shopping, because they used to do, because I wouldn't get out of the house. Don't forget that I had twins, and I had 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls. And James was only what? I had one in September 1 year, and the following September one was born, Catherine was born, one the 7th and one the 11th. So I think James was 5 months old. Catherine was 5 months old before James started to walk. So I didn't go very far. To go with my mother's on Sunday, if I could get him to the Iggy session after church to get a rest. My mother died, she was way here. No undertaker then. We had fun. Play cards at night with gas lamps and we'd burn wood. They had wood. All winter they'd cut wood.
Cut wood was that much work?
They would haul wood with an ox or an old horse.
axe?
They'd cut it, they'd come home with a load as soon as they'd have it cut, you know. But I mean, he was always ahead anyway. He had some split, well, we had an old barn up there, and he had some the size of the barn, but you know it would. You had to stay up all night most of the time. You might have been able to afford a half a ton of coal for the cold nights, the February nights.
That was the only time you used the coal.
Yeah. Jean was born the 3rd of February, and I remember every day hauling a cod by the stove there, making a fire all night, because I had my bedroom next door to the kitchen.
It was that cold.
Oh, I guess. These houses are not insulated, you know. The back porch is insulated, because that's something that he built on it. And he insulated with my pantry and the porch. But the rest, it's insulated, I think. It looks like a canvas. But it's built strong. I'm going to tell you one thing. In that corner, there can be all window. It's not nails. It's pegs. They were making the house this way.
Wooden peg.
Wooden pegs, and this thing won't shake. It'll fall apart before. I'll try to get a grant this year to try and get the outside fixed, but there's no grant, they say, for senior citizens. That's what Alfred, what is it, Martel? Oh, we didn't put along. Work for the municipality here. Fougere. Alfred Fougere. So I don't know how long I'll be here. As long as it won't rain in my bed, I'll be here. There's a room in here.
Tell me about the house, you know. Who did you buy the house from?
Who did they buy the house with? He was in that, Emily was in this house 3 years before I got married. And, who did they buy? They bought that house from my aunt, Emma Sampson. Emma had married Walter Sampson. Bertha was married to my uncle, and he died here. They had no children, so she married another fellow, and then he died, Walter Sampson, and she decided she was going to sell it. You know how much we paid for this? $100. And we borrowed it from Fonzie Terrier next door, and we were paying $2.50 a year interest, and it took us 7 years to pay the $100. And old Father Mummercat had everything in his safe there. You'd go bring $2.50 a year on the interest. And finally had to go away to pay $800. $100. Of course, it wasn't fit to live in there. They ripped down the house where Puck is, and they finished this house with it, because his mother and father were living with it. So that's how old it is.
So you finished like the door casings and that came out of the old house over there, is it?
Yeah, some of it, I don't know, there was no floor, you had to jump from one joint to the other. She had hay in one of the rooms in there. When we moved in here, she had hay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was old. And it was full one time, this house. There's 4 bedrooms upstairs. Well, he had made, now there's 4 rooms upstairs, but there's one I call it the junk room. And I have a spare bedroom and my bedroom, and the room where Kevin sleep. So I never bought too much furniture for here. But
You know how old the house was when you bought it, or?
God, no. There was 2 or 3 families lived in this house before we came. My mother-in-law was telling me there's an old man, Murray, that was carrying the mail with a horse and sleigh, and he took a heart attack going down that hill there where, before you get to Pucker there, the hill there, where David Britton is.
Yeah.
He took a heart attack, and the horse was down the bank in the snow. And somebody found him, I think it was Emily, his brother, and they left him go, and the horse came to the barn, and they took him in here. Dr. DeVoe took his heart out right here and proved that he had died of a heart attack. His name was Lawrence Murray, from the borough there. Because my mother-in-law was a Murray. Murray there, you know. Murray from the borough. There's still some left. one that lived here before, there was a pane of glass, there was, with initials in, there was a stereo. There's 2 or 3 families in Lawrence, that I never knew, but they said that lived in here before we bought this. Before I did bought this, that's why I'm still here.
So if you were to guess, how old did you say it is?
In the house, I'd say it's over 200 years old. Cool. Because there's a lot of families that she's been naming me, my mother-in-law that lived in here, that was before my time. She died at 88, she knew them all. Me, I never knew anybody but my aunt. Who was married to my father's brother first, and after he died, when she married this one as well. And that's how we got this house. So after that, we had just a toilet upstairs there in the front. And after a while, after I got a bathroom put down, so a full bathroom. Now I like a bathroom and a half. I have lots of land, though. I have a house lot. 2 or 3 of them wanted to buy it, but I didn't want to sell it to one, so I wouldn't sell it to the other. It will go in the house. The house is to be sold when I die, and whatever they get for it, we divide it between the 5 or 4 or how many that be left. I don't know. They won't get too much for it, and then Michelle wants it now, Michelle. My nephew just had a credit union there, Michelle G's son.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't sell it to Ron, and I didn't want to sell it to Larry Wood, so I'm not selling it to Michelle. They can do it. I got my will made as soon as he passed away. That's what he was going to do. He was always saying, if you die before me, that's what I'm going to do. So when he died before I did, so that's what I did. Whether they get $2,000 or they have to bury me anyway.
Well,
I hate to leave it, I know I can go pick up a needle upstairs in the dark here. I've been here for so long. Well, from 17 to 81. Yeah, 7 from 11.
I want to go back a little bit to as far back as you can remember. Get a little idea of what it was like living at that time.
Yeah. Well, the only way I know how to live is when I started to live myself, because I don't know anything about Cape Over. I don't even. I remember going with the sisters after that to take berries when my father worked 25 years for the sister when they had the convent, and he worked 25 years for the priest too. Old Father Moncat.
He took care of the grounds?
Yeah. Yeah, he was making gardens, and they were selling the vegetables and making the housework, and the sisters too. We worked it out for $25 a month, and we were 6 kids.
What was it like going to school at that time?
Going to school? No. We all went to school, I know. My sisters. In Cape Ogut, there was a little red schoolhouse on this side of Cape Ogut where they are now there. But I never went to it because I wasn't there at the time. I wasn't in school.
Was it like going to school out there? Were the nuns teaching in the schools, or was it
in the schools? No. I went to school to Josephine, that was married to my uncle Leonard Bona. She wasn't married then. I went to school to Evangeline McDonald, where Vinci Bona lives now. There's no way on the way to Porterville. And why did I go to school in the school? I made all my first communion, my confirmation. I did all that in the school.
So were they strict, those teachers?
No. Mother Emily was more strict around here because she used to cry. When the boys would make her supper, she used to cry, LeBlanc and Conrad Woodon, they were some bad. And she cried because she couldn't do anything with them. But today, then they used to beat them, They put you outside the door and then stay there for a while. That would only make them laugh. That was it. some bad, you were still around. His mother and father had to come to school every week. The teacher would make them come, they were so bad. And Edith Terrio, she's still living, Edith Terrio. You know, that's where she used to go in Milbenor, she's in Halifax. She's still living. And so nobody ever went to college because there wasn't enough money to go to college. You know, there was somebody went, I suppose.
Was it multi-graded in the schools?
Pardon?
Was there more than one grade in?
In the school, you know, different teachers, you know, from like from 1 to 8, and from then when you go to the higher grades, you had to come to our side.
There was a school in Pullman, was there?
No, in the schools where the hall is now.
Was that the only school on the north side?
That's the only school I knew of. I don't think there was any. There might have been one in Pullman. Yeah, there was one in Pullman. There's apartments in that school now. The only apartments in the old school in Pullman, but when there was a bridge there separating the schools from Pullman. That bridge where the Burke is at there, you know, or the Britain that serves the bridge there. Well, the bridge on this side. That was the bridge that the boundaries between the schools in Pullman.
The rivalry between the schools in Pullman?
Well, that's what they called it anyway. And then there was Porterville. There was a school in Porterville.
Oh, yeah.
So there wasn't that many cars. The doctors and the priests are the only one with cars. Well, I guess not.
The school wasn't that bad though.
Oh no. But when you got to grade 10, you were educated. You were educated then, or you had to go to normal school to be a school teacher. That was the only thing.
How was it different going to school with the nuns than going to school out in the schools?
It was nice when the old convent was there. I liked it upstairs there, the old convent. And then there was boarders at the school. They had the boarders all year round.
From where?
From everywhere. Everywhere they wanted to pay their board. I brought up the 2 camel girls in Pasadena Helen that were there. 2 sisters. There were 5 sisters around here at every second house. Their mother was TV and their father was alcoholic. They lived in South Bar outside Sydney, and they had put them at the convent here, but they were disturbing the ones in the higher grade. So during vacation, they asked me if I'd take them for vacation. So I took them. I was getting $8 a week, 5 for room and board, and 3 for clothes. So I only took them with the idea that it was only for the summer. When it came to September, the nuns didn't want them back. So crazy Theresa kept them 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. They were the same age as Pauline. And when they started to be 14 and 15 and getting boyfriend, I said, you are not staying here. So I had to notify the children's agency in the end. They put them way out in the country. They didn't want to go at all. I had their pictures. I had Patsy's picture somewhere, Patsy. They were just like mine. They called me the mother, and they always called Emily the father. You know, whenever they died, 13 years ago, Patsy was down. She married a Hamish from Inverness. She finished her schooling in Inverness. And the other one she took off. I never heard from Helen, from her sister. There was one at Tyne and LeBlanc, and there was one at Julia, where Puck is there, and there was one at Charlie's, and I had the 2 others, my sister. So there was a lot of kids. When I bought my cuckoo clock there, they'd all come here and wait till the cuckoo came out before they walked to school. They had to walk to school and come back for lunch, and walk back after lunch. And when it was too stormy, they'd go get them with a horse and sleigh. They'd all get on the wood sleigh and take them all home, all the Ontario, and covered with an old sheet.
Well, could you describe the convent building?
The convent? I don't even think. Some people have got pictures of the convent, but I haven't. The convent, there was a separate house with Fodiga land that you was blind. That's who my father worked for, and then there was the kitchen there was a big, different homes for the boarders and the nuns, and about 10 nuns, I guess. Some teaching music, and some teachers, and we used to go out the back door there and go upstairs because Mother Emily's class was upstairs. I remember one thing when you remember Agatha LeBlanc, Agatha? You were well, she wasn't the same grade as I was, and her father always owned a store, the same as the guy that has it now, but it's bigger than then. But anyway, I'd do her homework for her. I'd do mine, and then I'd copy my homework in her scribbler, because she wouldn't do her homework. And one day, Mother Emily noticed that it wasn't her writing. So she took us out to I was getting paid for it. She was bringing me socks and all kinds of stuff she'd steal from the store. Yeah. Gramophone records. She always had a big bag full of stuff, stockings. Golf stockings we used to wear. The children weren't allowed to go to school with jeans or ski pants. So she'd bring me all that stuff, and I needed it. So, and she's great, just as well as I did. She's great. After a while, though, Mother Emily started to notice the writing, and I had to tell her that I was doing, But when it come to write exams, I got grade the same as I would.
And what happened when she found out?
She had a boyfriend, or she was going with Leon, Ontario, before Leon was sterilized now, you know Leon. He was married to a relation to your mother, her sister, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but anyway, the boat was coming from Mulgrave, starting from Mulgrave and up to here, and she'd drive on her bike to West Ayrshire to get on the boat, so that she'd be with Leon from West Ayrshire to Ayrshire. And she didn't have time to do her homework because she had a boyfriend. So I used to do it.
Yeah, I was working on boats. What were you doing? He was cooking with you?
Well,
Yeah.
Leon was cook with his father, with Leo. His father's name was Leo. He was a cook, and Leon was working like cook helper aboard a boat in Madeline or something. It used to carry the freight. Sometimes in the winter it would have to stop in the back of the lighthouse there, because Emily was the one that would go on the ice with a horse and sleigh to take the groceries for the stores on this side, so that would trouble them up because they wouldn't go on the ice. They wouldn't go on the ice with, or scared, truck was scared to fall in the ice. So that's the way it went.
What happened when Mother Emily found out?
Oh, she took us out. She said she wanted to talk to the two of us, and of course we had to tell the truth. I couldn't deny it. She said, "Were you doing a gas work?" I said, "Yes." I said, "I was getting paid for it." Well, she said, "Didn't you know you weren't supposed to do that?" I said, "No," but I said, "I felt I was getting well paid for it." And she never said anything. No, she said, "Well, you'll have to discontinue that." She said, "She's supposed to do her own homework." So that went up right up to grade 10. She got her grade the same as I did.
So that was the closest you came to getting in trouble?
Yes, I guess. But they were so bad, and poor Edith Terrio, this was a funny story. We used to have to write on the boards, they had a great big blackboard, and one day Edith Terrio was writing on the board, and the elastic of her panties broke, and her panties fell on the floor, at the board, and we were all in our guys, and you can imagine the racket it made in school. They were laughing so much, and nobody wanted to tell Mother Emily what had happened. They didn't want to tell her. So, and I think it was Ulrich or Conrad Buton that told her, because she was going with it then all the time. And she was still struck on him when she left there. She said they lived next door to him. They got in trouble every day then. The others got in trouble every day. His mother and father had to come there, Godfrey, and we had to come there to the convent, talk to the sisters to see what she was going to do with them.
What kind of punishments did they give?
kind of
Punishments.
punishment? Oh, I don't know. What kind of, wasn't that much anyway, you couldn't punish them too. They just let you stay out the door until you were ready to say, you know. They'd put you in the hall and they'd close the door and when you were ready to say tell the truth, well, they'd open the door and let you in. You couldn't stay standing up there too long. She's dead now, Mother, and she was around here for a long time. From France.
From friends.
Yeah, she was from France.
Was everything in the convent in French?
And in French?
Mm.
Oh, no. They had English too. Some people around here didn't talk English. But they learned quite a bit. They learned a lot of English. We learned from listening to the others, you know. Well, the two Campbell girls I brought up, I was telling you, when they came here, they didn't know a word of French. They were Scotch, they had Campbells. And before they left here, Father Poirier was so proud that they could talk French better than my own kids. Patsy never forgot either. Patsy was in New Glasgow, and she came whenever they died, and she could talk French as good as I can, maybe better. From listening, you know, and there was so. Pauline didn't talk a word of English, and they didn't talk a word of French, so they had to learn. The two, they had to get acquainted, and was queer gibberish sometimes, but they learned. They were just like sisters. They'd been brought up like sisters. Pauline is the same age as Patsy. And I had a house full. I had the two old folks, and Emily and I, that was 4. I think we were 11 in the house one time here. And I was the owner. I used to bake bread, like 12 bread 3 times a week. I was smarter then than now. Yeah, good old days. But anyway.
What about in childhood? I talked about school, but what about what did you do? What did you do for fun?
Well, pastime.
Mm.
Well, all they did at my house where nurses lived there when we were younger. We were 6 girls, and they all had boyfriends, and they were serving girls from around, and they were serving around here, like at Morton Binney's and then Cannell. And you know what they'd do? They'd come at my house, my father's house, and we had an old gramophone that we used to crank, and they'd dance. That's all. And they had their boyfriend. They weren't allowed to take their boyfriends where they worked. Some of them are still living. Gaston Fougère's wife there, Rose, she was one of them. She's still living, and her sister Irene. They were all hired as serving girls around here. And wait now, Samson from came around there. His wife, she was one of them. I know her. I go to what's her name? One that owns the farm there, you know. Lester, what's his name? Sampson?
Alphonse.
Alphonse Sampson's wife. I know her right good. When she was young, she used to take her boyfriend. She used to go with one of the Bouchers. That would be the one stayed next door to Jean. There was his name. Jean Gerard.
Gerald.
Gerard Boucher's stepsister. Yeah. And that's where they gathered, all at my father's house.
They lived in the houses where they were working, is that it?
Yeah, and they lived there, but they weren't allowed to have any boyfriends there. They sleep there, and they do all the housework, eh?
And they were paid.
That's why, that's how Cecile Binney happened to marry Morton Binney, because she was taking care of Morton's mother. When he got her pregnant, then he married her. Cecile was still living, you know. She was only young. She had a bunch of kids, but he was way older than her. He's dead years and years ago. The only one around here is Guy's wife. She was something helping him.
So you did that for entertainment?
That's all they did for a pastime. And if you had a boyfriend, well, you had to wait till they were gone so you could tell them, because nobody knew. There was Mabel Bona, and there was Ned, and there was about 6 for an old gramophone that you could crank there. There was no electricity, so. And at 11 o'clock, well, you had to tell them to go home because my mother was sitting down by the chimney and she wouldn't go to bed till they were all gone. Not like today there, you didn't have a car to go park. You're laughing. I'm telling you the truth, I remember that. Yeah, I didn't have a car. There was only the doctor and the priest that had a car. That's all. Yeah. But it was cheap fun. They had to go somewhere, so we knew them all, you know, we knew all the girls, so my father and mother leave them come to our house in the winter time. And they dressed Nicoran there, you know. Nicoran in Lent for a whole week.
Yeah.
They leave them in different houses, and you had to guess who they were. Sometimes you guessed wrong, and they'd dance, and they'd drink beer, and sometimes some of them, my father would want to dress up Nicoran. He always had like a live rat in a basket and a bottle of milk and a nipple or an old net, and they were scared of him. They didn't know who he was. He always liked to dress Nicoran. We used to go where in the day Gaia, she said, that old house they tore down there, you know. You know where that old house across the upper side of the road they tore down a couple of years ago? Not every house that would leave them in. Because some of them were drinking and they were scared, you know. Because they had sticks and they hit you on the hand. And sometimes you thought it was a certain person and it wasn't it at all. You know, you just guess it. I know who you are, but when they take off their mask, they did take them off. It wasn't the person that you thought it was. Strangers coming from strange places. And there was homemade beer, or wine, or whatever they used to drink. I never drank in my life, and I never smoked. I was a good girl. Never drank even at a wedding. I don't even like, I find the taste of wine changes the taste of the food. Never liked liquor. But my father used to take a drink of homemade stuff like that. But he used to dress Nicoran, oh, that Nicoran, that had the 4 week of Lent. Now, Sophia, but she goes with her Shedican, they still make it in Shedican. She knows them all, that's where she was from. Around Shedican. Then we had a new family that moved out there. Chasson, there you know, where the Whoopies are. She was friends. She used to come here. The girl used to come here. She had a lot of quite a few. Quite a few kids, about 10, I guess. But they all stayed home, most of them, and they learned to knit.
Was there much drinking?
Eh?
Was there much drinking in those days?
Well, it was all homemade brew, you know. You couldn't something more to make them sick than. Yeah, there was always drinking. There was always a certain gang that drank, you know. And they got drunk once with a horse and a wagon, and then it was Benny Babin that gave him a drink way up the harbour. I don't know where he was going, but anyway, he came home with the horse, and the horse went to the barn, and he laid in a pile of nets in the shed there. And the horse knew where he was living, so somebody came along and took off the harness off of the horse. And I would look for him, and I found him on the net, so I let him sleep. He never drank after that. It was the first and last time, I'm telling you. He was good and sick. I think he was drinking when he was in the States. Because I told him, he said, "We're 7 years in the States." I told him one day, I said, "Why didn't you marry? You had a girlfriend up there, why didn't you marry her? Look at all the trouble you would have saved me." He said, "Yeah, you would have found some other fool." But there was some who used to drink. Not too much in the liquor store because there was no money. But they used to make dandelion wine and all kinds of junk like that. Made them more sick than drunk, I guess.
What else did they make it out of? Dandelions?
Pardon?
What else did they make it out of? They made it out of dandelions?
Then they some out of dandelion beets wine, and prunes, I guess. You used to put some stuff in it anyway that would give them some strength or some satisfaction, but there were some of it made you sick, eh? You weren't used to it. And I really never made no wine.
What else do you do for entertainment?
What?
What else did you do for entertainment?
For entertainment? Not much. In the summertime, the kids used to go swimming in the lake there. Now they're not allowed. They go swimming, and at 3 o'clock they had to come home to help make the hay, because you had to carry hay with 2 poles there. You don't make haystacks during the night, at night, and the next morning spread them out again. At 3 o'clock they had to come home. But my kids used to have a lot of wheelbarrows and stuff at the lake there. Now that since you drink the lake water, you're not allowed to go there anymore. I used to go there and wash in the summertime. When the well would go dry, I'd take the kids in the carriage and I'd go down that road, and it was like a picnic. You'd take a lunch and you'd wash there, hang the clothes on the trees, and when they were dry, by the time they were dry, you'd make the kids drag it and come back home. Because you had no washer. You had to wring out blankets and all stuff by hand. They weren't all too good. And you didn't have too much clothes for the babies, so it made like a picnic for them. A piece of bread and molasses, anything was a picnic. And the people worked a lot more than they do today. Now all you need is, how many more years have you got to go to college?
2 more.
Hey?
2 more.
2? Well, that's not too bad. Then you'll have probably a good job. Might have to get out of there fast. You think so? You think you'll have to get out?
God knows.
Eh?
God knows.
God no. Unless you're lucky. Unless you go for politics. They'd be killing you by then. Politics is, I don't vote anymore. What for? Whatever side you vote for is all for promises. And you can't live too well on promises.
You remember politics back then?
Politics do I remember politics by then? Do I? On Sunday they had to go from house to house to get somebody to open the road. And if they didn't give you a little job, you couldn't get anybody to help you shovel the road. You had to shovel it by hand, because there was no plow, and you had to go to the mail, you had to go to church. There was a lot more church then, and then my kids always went to church. None of them goes now, most of them, but they went when they lived under my roof, they went, because they walked ahead of me. But once they got to be then I had nothing to do with them. But politics was the same, you know. It wasn't the same in a way, because if you were liberal and they thought that you were a conservative, you couldn't get a job picking rocks up on the road. That wasn't a very good job, was it? But you wouldn't even get that. Today it doesn't make any difference. I know some that were very big conservatives, and the liberals are in, and they did not lose their jobs. There's union today. There was no union in my days. Now, once they're in the union, you stay where you are. Whether you're a conservative or a liberal or an Eskimo or whatever you are. It's true, though, eh? Your grandfather remembers that, and Leo remembers that too.
Was there much trouble over politics?
They used to fight, fist fight. But they used to do like they do now, when the one that would win would have like well, they pay you. I remember in the day 1 year he got a pint of rum from the Conservatives, and he got a pint of rum from the Liberals. And you didn't vote open vote, but they didn't know who you were. They just took a rough guess. That's all. And me, I always hated politics. I still do. Sharon there, at the bank, when she was working at the bank last year, called me at 7 o'clock in the morning if I wanted the car to come and pick me up. I said, you've got to be kidding. You've got to be kidding. And I went because they don't tell you what. I remember one year, it was 10 to 6, and the poll was just ready to close. And Wilbur Stone was living then, and he was driving. And he came to the door here, and he knocked, and he knew I wasn't in the house. I had in my mind that I wasn't going, and I didn't go either. After the poll was closed, then I unlocked the door, and he knew I was in the house. I was all alone in the house. I said, I'm not getting bothered to go. Hillary Bone there, he was always at the door there. They did that one to live with it, that one to live with it. And they were in doubt, you know. Because we never voted. The poor old souls that had to vote, open vote, they had to say, you know, with two witnesses, who they were voting for, because they couldn't mark their ballot. They didn't know. They didn't know what name, or they'd ask, well, what's the first name, what's the second name on the ballot? And sometimes they'd make a great big X, so they spoiled the ballot anyway. They didn't want anybody to know who they voted for. But anyway, it was different, but it was fun.
How was it fun?
Hmm?
How was it fun?
Oh, it was fun. It was fun because they value, then you could, if they voted you for a conservative, well, they used to give pints of rum then. Now they don't give anything. They don't say thank you, I don't think. But you had to, in order to get some little job on the road. You know, but they knew. They had parties after that, you know, but there was liquor for the ones that had won before. That was given away. They were going and giving some kind of a party to put on in some hall. I never went. I was never interested that much in politics.
You talked about religion a little bit. How was the religion different?
I think it was different.
How was, like going to church, how was that different now?
Well, going to church?
Yeah.
Well, there was more Catholics then than there are now, I'll tell you that one. They weren't by name like they are today, because all the children were brought up, you know, they made their first communion at about 7 years old, and then the confirmation, and they all did that while they were home. Because they didn't know them much about some of them, but anyway, I have nothing to be sorry for. I don't care what they do now. It's their problems now. You go to church? Yeah. Some of them go. It's a habit of going to church. If you get in the habit of staying home, you don't even think about it. You know? And if you get in the habit of going, when the Sunday comes, you go. There was no church on Saturday night. Now they have a choice, Saturday night and Sunday morning. But now in Lent we have to say the beads, family, all the family. Some of them have come to the door, and the kids were saying the beads. They just stay outside until you let your kids go with them. They wouldn't even come in to say them, but I wouldn't let them go before it was all finished. But it didn't make them no angels, you know. But anyway, that was the style of them days. The old folks lived with you most of the time, and their way of living, that was it. And
no meat during Lent? No meat during Lent?
No, well, I never fasted that much, but there was only on Friday, every Friday you wouldn't cook no meat. Well, you didn't have too much meat to cook anyway, but mostly fish, because it was all kinds of fish. You know. They say it's the brain food, but I don't know, some of them didn't put too much brain. Fish is the brain food, they say. But it was fresh fish, it's not the fish like you get today. All Russian cod and half yellow. Ah, we survived anyway. No one dies till their time comes.
I go back to childhood again. What kind of chores did you have to do? What was there?
You had to do the chores. Today they don't do no chores, but my Catherine and Jean on Saturday, well, I made them stay in the house, and they had to learn to cook. Like you leave them, you didn't have cake mixes, it was from the scratch. So they could read and they followed the recipe and they learned, and when they got married then they knew how. Today, some 13 and 14, they don't even want to wash dishes unless their parents pays them. They never got paid from me. We're lucky they got their 3 meals a day and clothes to put on their back. It's a hard time enough. And they're spoiled, the kids of today, don't you find? How about your sister? Does she work?
No.
Eh?
No.
I mean, today. Hey, Gerald's got one, she's 13 there. If her mother don't pay her to wash the dishes, she won't wash them. She'd wash her. If she was mine, she'd wash them. Or she wouldn't go very far. I'd send her upstairs. She goes away on the weekends with other friends. Bigger, she's taller than I am. They don't work today.
What other kinds of things did the kids have to do?
Eh?
What other kinds of things did the kids have to do?
Well, they had to help with the hay. And they had to scrub the floor. You know, you only had like oilcloths. You had no carpets. So they do whatever they were big enough to do. You know, you would leave them go. They'd go to the show. Every Saturday afternoon there was a show upstairs at the bank. There at the old bank. We give them each a quarter on to go to the show. 15 cents to go in and 10 cents for candy. James run that show too there for years and years up there. We were getting free pass. Yeah, and that's all. They didn't look to go anywhere. They do their work and their homework and go to school. And at night when they go for a walk, you had to walk away. There's street dances there where the drugstore is at. And they'd come from everywhere, and there was a great treat there.
Street dances.
They dance outside.
How did they get the light?
I don't know how they got the light. I guess they danced till it was. I had a sister married to a soldier, and come down from Calgary, and they were in uniforms, and the girls were all after the ones with the uniform, the soldiers and the Air Force men, and they all went away but me. They all married the servant. Almir married one from Winnipeg, and May married one from Halifax, and they all married. Only me that stayed in this whole live here. Some of them are dead. Some of them are dead. I only have one sister living in Sydney, a nurse in Port Hawkesbury. He's the baby and he's 68 years old. Yeah. So we got pretty well all the resume. You got some more to do today? No?
Yeah, later on tonight.
Eh?
Later on tonight.
Yeah, all tonight. You work nights?
Sometimes. I've heard that the old people were good at predicting the weather.
Good at what?
Predicting the weather.
Oh yeah. Well, they look at the moon, and they look at the sun. They know if it was going to rain the next day. And then they'd watch on the calendar too. You know, if it was full moon, they wouldn't kill an animal if it was one. I don't know which one it was, but I think it must have been the full moon when you cooked the meat. It was supposed to. One moon was supposed to shrink the meat, and the other moon was okay. So they wouldn't kill a pig. We all had pigs, sometimes too. They wouldn't kill it if it wasn't the right moon. But they would say that the pork would get half the size after it was cooked. I don't know if it was cooked. That was their idea of it.
It's the same thing for planting?
Eh?
The same thing for planting gardens or harvesting?
I don't know if then, they used to make the big garden, but, me, I never planted he used to plant, my father used to plant all the gardens, he used to furnish us with all he had all the back of the field there where the movies had their canteen there, that was all his. And nurses had it, and so did all. But I remember that about the animals, killing the animals, oh yeah. It was the same thing, and then they'd kill the pigs and you'd save the blood and you'd make blood puddings and sausages, way better than what you buy. Oh, we had lots to eat. We had lots to eat because you'd kill it like a heifer and there was no freezer. You hang that up in your shed and it would freeze, and you'd go there and cut great big slices of steak about this size there. And we had lots of meat, lots of fish, and lots of vegetables of all kinds for all winter long. But some of the kids were fussy there.
How did they predict the weather?
They predict the weather by the color of the moon. If it was going to rain when the moon, I get the 2 points were upwards when the moon first started, you know. I don't know, but they were saying we're going to have rain tomorrow or in a couple of days, or they'd watch that before they try to start to cut their hay. But they had all to cut all the hay by hand, eh? Early in the morning there, they had to cut so much for the next day. And if it rained on the piles of hay, well, then the hay would get black, and some of it was only good for bedding, for pigs, and you had all kinds of chicken. That's the way the people lived on farms, you know. We had a big barn up there. It's cut down.
What about clouds? Did they use the clouds to predict the weather?
I guess so. They used something anyway, the old folks. They wouldn't tell us what. They'd say, well, don't do this today because it's going to rain tomorrow, or the day after. The rain is coming pretty soon. They knew all that. I don't think. Well, the children would learn from the fathers. They mostly the men, not in the house. There was nothing there. We had gas lamps there. Gas lamps were good light at the end. And got electricity put in. Archie Sampson and Al going out put in the wired this house. Because Archie's mother was my mother's sister. You ever see Clarice? You ever see Clarice?
Oh, yeah.
She got it made, her. Archie stayed with Paul Bushy when he was only a young boy. He lived next door to me there, where the house where Theresa is now wasn't that house. It was an old house. Morrison's owned it. I used to live next door to senior citizen apartments, all that. An old house. So I know a lot of people in the school, the older ones, you know.
The old people didn't go to the doctor very much for it.
No, they used to make their own remedies. If the kids were sick, they'd put like a hot flannel with Vicks or something in the back, and in the front they'd put that with safety pins on their shirts. And they didn't go to the doctor like they go to there. There was only one doctor anyway. Dr. DeVoe that was here, he used to serve as a dentist too. For teeth too. And Dr. B.A. LeBlanc-July was only them two that I know. And Dr. Urban that used to live where Ronald Britt is at. But Dr. DeVoe was my doctor. And I had the twins, the first kids that were born in this hospital here were my twins. My kids.
That's all. What year was that?
You know what, I took sick at midnight here, and I walked to the hospital. And the day and we had a woman to take care of the other kids. And when I got there, I got in bed, and the little fellow was born. As soon as I got in bed, the little fellow was born, and Margaret Cusack there she was at the head of the hospital, and Viola was going with Jimmy Turr. They were spooning somewhere in the back. They had to get up, and the nurses never noticed there was another one. They called Dr. LeBlanc, and he came, and he uncovered me in bed, and he said there was another one. I thought to myself, well, I'm going to leave my bones here this time. And she was born an hour after that, and Polly was the one. He lived 3.5 months, and he died pneumonia. And she had a cleft palate there, she used to talk funny. And they never noticed in the hospital when she was crying, they never noticed. So I got her operated on. That's her there. She's not small now. She was always wondering if that would be her father would have that. She went to school with her father. If he had, I don't know what year, has he got yearbooks, her father? She had a yearbook, and when she got an attitude, he threw it in the garbage by mistake. She liked to see herself in that yearbook or see that. She was always going to call him up and ask him if he had. I don't know what yearbook. Eh?
You got all of it.
Oh my God. She liked to borrow it to see. She was so mad. She doesn't know of anybody else. She knows her father very well. He got them all. I think you paid $1.50 for one of the times. It was hard to get. Because she's the only one that got one. She'd like to see one.
Going back to the old remedies and stuff.
The old remedies.
What did they use? Like if you had
My
a cold.
mother-in-law used to tell me that when they had a sore throat, the kids had a sore throat, that they'd put a salt herring under their throat and tie it in the back, and that was for the cure of the sore throat. And for the cough, it was pepper and molasses. They'd take a spoonful of molasses and put some pepper on top, and they'd make you swallow that, and that would cut the coughing. Today it's Tylenol, and it don't cut it. That's the way.
What about for a boil or something?
Eh?
A boil.
A boil, I don't know what they do for that. I get that they just make they'd make poultices out of bread, They soak homemade bread, and they'd make a poultice. I don't know what they'd put on the poultice. That was before my time. My mother-in-law used to tell me all this. They'd put the haul out. They'd put something in the bread, the yeast or something would pull out the best stuff from the boil anyway. And for a sore back was the same. They just rub something strong that they'd make of their own remedies, They'd buy camphorated ointment there from Raleigh's. The ointment and for coughs, and they'd have the red stuff there was really strong. They still have it in Pittsburgh. They still sell it there at Woodrow. They made it there for Raleigh. They still have that stuff. But now you buy the Vicks. It's not as strong. Yeah, you didn't run to the doctor. The old folks would tell you what to do, Tell you their remedies. You did it. They pulled through it.
The things I wanted to check that other people had brought up. Do you remember the earthquake?
The earthquake? Yeah, the one I remember that it didn't last. We were around here then. Just like a shake of the house or something for a couple of seconds. I'm more scared of thunder than of that.
Was there a tidal wave? I heard people say there was a tidal wave.
Tidal wave? Never heard of it. Would have been.
And Indians. Was there Indians who used to come to?
Oh, Indians, yeah. Well, the Indians had come around with baskets, and you would buy some from them, or if you gave them a meal, they'd ask you for a meal, well, they'd give you a basket, and they had all kinds of them on their bags. And there's some around 25 cents, 50 cents, all kinds of baskets. From clothes baskets right down to real gold baskets for very big in they work baskets.
Did they camp here?
They used to camp mostly where the going pond is way, you know. Or if they'd ask you if you could, some of them would give them a place, bed, you know, couch to sleep on or something. And they'd never camped in this field. But they used to stay around here. They'd come, they had no cars then, you know. But now they don't come around with baskets anymore around here. Come with roses sometimes, but they have big cars. The Indians, they get along better now than they used to then. They used to come from there ahead and those places, you know. And they used to camp a lot at Cape Hogan because it wasn't too busy, you know.
What kind of people were they?
Well, they weren't bad, you know. They weren't so bad. They'd take clothes from you if you wanted to give them some, you know, but they had a hard time then, you know, before the pensions came up. But they'd take anything you wanted to give them. And then we had Joe Pipe going around. On about 12 cups a day for a water down. You give them a little bottle of perfume that he wouldn't sell. Oh, Joe Pipe. Oh, yeah.
He was a peddler?
Eh?
He was a peddler?
He was, yeah, he would go around with medicines, you know. All kinds of medicines, like kinds of liniments and all kinds of stuff like that. But there was no drugstore, so they bought a lot of stuff from him.
He was a drugstore.
There was no drugstore then. He was a drugstore with a horse and wagon. He never had a car, never drove a car. So that was the side of it.
I've heard people talk about gypsies too.
Gypsies, I never saw any gypsies. Yeah, gypsies.
Did you hear about them?
I heard my in-laws talking about them, you know. They were dressed funny, eh? With long dresses, and I don't know what they were going around for. Begging for something, I guess.
What did they say about them?
Now when they go around to see, you had a dime to give them or something, they had no money. Before the pensions came out, the old folks had no money. My grandfather there, sometime we didn't have 10 cents to buy him a ticket to that. We kept my grandfather in the old house where Theresa old house there. Because $25 a month for 6 kids for 12 years of their leave out for Father Galan and 12 years for Father Mama got $25 a month. But I didn't have a habit. She was saying, wait till Daddy gets paid, and wait till Daddy gets paid. If you wanted something, she had to wait till Daddy got paid. She didn't have too much. But you could buy a lot of stuff a lot cheaper. Eh? You had to make it do. There was nothing else. Like today, people weren't so fussy. Anyway, there's some way older than I am still living. Julia there, my sister-in-law Julia at the home there, she's 10 years older than I am. She's 91. She has all her memories too. Puck's mother. Now Theresa Albert's wife, that Bert's mother, is there where she got Alzheimer's. And the dentist's mother's got Alzheimer's. And Teresa's about, she's not a year younger than what I am. But she doesn't know you. She doesn't know. Bert says it makes you die after a while, I suppose, when the time comes. She doesn't know me. I try to explain to her when I go. She holds my hand so tight that she can't pull it away from her, but she doesn't know. Bert is nervous and he can't stand there very long. And Andrew was nervous. All that, on Albert's side, they were a nervous type, you know. there was none too much. What else was there going a long time ago? Knitting. Knitting. We used to knit all their homemade socks and sweaters. Those that had the time, you know. And then shear the sheep. Bring that to get it carded.
Oh, the shearing.
They used to shear the sheep, the woman, my mother and them, they used to shear their own sheep. And then they'd take the wool to the ponders, which were ground that was there. And then
Was it?
and then they'd get it all done. Now, at the end, they used to send it to Prince Edward Island. That was a dirty job. There was a river, there was kind of a river coming from where Joe was at Woodrow, was also coming right through our field there, right, going down through the lane. That was a public lane at the time. Now, I think it still is. I don't know, the cars still go down there, yeah. Rough, that was rough.
And what was the purpose of that river? What did they do in that river?
I don't know, just something that was coming from some lake or something. But they used to wash the wool, the dirty wool coming from the sheep, they used to wash that in that river. Was the job that the older woman had to do it, and not the kids, but the older woman. You wouldn't see them today. Such and that was thing. But they logged that with roads, the Department of Highways logged that. So there's a lot of new houses that were built since then.
So you were making clothes.
Yeah.
Did you do any work outside? Did you take care of the garden, or did
Me?
you?
Not me. I had enough of the house. We were 11 in the house.
What about picking berries? Was that the woman's work?
Picking berries, I used to go with them sometimes, but I did go. She didn't want to go, but I used to go with them, not far here, across the road in the high road there. Now it's all grown up. Trees now you can't do. And then I had boners, they're the boners, and they were still poorer than when we were. The Marbles family, you know, big amount. I remember going there, coming from swimming, and we'd eat. They'd cook herring like about 3 times a day, salt herring. We'd get in an old room there and eat that herring boiled as if it had been a cone of ice cream. Cold, we had a better stomach than they have today. We used to, the one that, she sold her house there, the one that's down there at Nadu there, you know? They sold her house. Their last trip down here from Quebec. Big amount of house, and that's all that. He was my age, big amount. He would have been 81 on the 10th of June, and I was on the 1st of June. He died before. We were all brought up together, and they were poorer than what we were. We used to send them to Green. My father always had cattle, cows.
Who milked the cows?
Milked the cow, my mother. Mother milked the cow. We tried, some of them didn't want to try. There was an act to it. Milking the cow.
So what was your work inside the house? What did you do?
The work inside the house, well, it was like I tell you, breakfast, dinner, supper, washing dishes, papering or painting, whatever there was to do. And that's, you had plenty inside. I had 5, 6, 7, and we were 11 in this house one time. I had old Mrs. Wigmore that moved in with me when she sold her house there, where Gordon Gershwin is. I had enough to do in the house. I tell you, I wasn't up at midnight. I didn't wait till it got dark at night to go to bed. And the men then, they were in bed before us. If they get up at 4 o'clock to go squid jigging, they had bait. They had the hobo.
So you made bread.
Made bread 3 times a week, 12 bread at a time, by hand. Well, sometime when I couldn't punch it, then they would punch it. In a great big tub, made bread, great big homemade bread. Never heard about sliced bread, bread in the store then. to wash it, and then you had no dryers. When it would rain, you had lines upstairs and lines above the stove, and you would dry the clothes on there. It was pretty stiff, but anyway. One time I could wring out clothes right good. Now I lost the act and the strength I get.
What about washing or cleaning the house? Is that harder than it is now?
Oh yeah. When you'd get the men to do that, they get, the men would do that, like the washing of the walls or the, would you believe these ceilings haven't been painted for 13 years? And the day was the last one that painted these ceilings. I'm telling you, I make fun of them sometimes. I say, I don't know what kind of paint you got, but it certainly stayed white. He used to tell me all the time, I never saw you with a paintbrush, and I never saw you cleaning a rabbit. I said, no, you won't see me either. And he died before he saw me because I never cleaned a rabbit, and I never painted. He did all the painting and all the papering, and it was fussy. It had to match. And he'd say, don't come upstairs, don't come and see the mistakes. I couldn't open my mouth because I couldn't do any better, so. Yeah. So now I'm taking it easy, but now I make dinner.
Two more questions.
No more questions? Okay.
What did our shed look like when you got here?
Our shed looked like much worse than it looks today. With less houses, old houses. And just two stores. The LeBlanc, Godfrey LeBlanc, God's father, and then John LeBlanc from the very beginning. Not John, John, with a wooden leg. And it kept on till young John went away, and now the IGA. And I guess there was not much canned stuff. You didn't need too much canned stuff. You made your own pickles and your own. Everything was made by hand. The women in your store done a lot. No push buttons.
What about the schools? Was the schools different than it is now?
Huh?
Was the schools different than it is now?
Yeah. Yeah, it was something. Well, yeah, there's not so much change in this school.
Yeah.
In this school, they haven't got. Well, they got the new hall now, and then the church burned down, and they built a new church. And otherwise, it's a lot of old houses in the school. There's a lot of old houses going up. People around, it's getting worse as you get to get around now. All the folks are dead, and the young people didn't bother getting. They stay in the house like I do as long as they can, as long as it won't rain in the winter. This house needs a lot of repair. I tried to get a grant this year. I couldn't even get any. They say there's no grant, so when I won't be able to stay in it no more, I'll move out somewhere. I could go live with James, but I don't want to go. I could go live in Allsco with Catherine. I don't know living so in Allsco. And in Allsco, it's not people like around here. I have no money, but I get a lot of visitors. A lot of visitors. Not a day that goes by. On Sunday, the house is always full. And then the kids, Jared's kids comes over, the ones that are there. And I get a lot of phone calls. So.
All right. It's a reproduction of an original, of a very old picture. So
Where they going to be on, somewhere in some...
Okay. This is a reproduction of an original picture. The man in the picture is Captain Peter Poirier from the north side of the island. He would be Theresa's great-great-grandfather. This picture was taken when he was 103 years old.
Yeah.
This is a picture of the wharf
Yeah.
below the house. The two men in the picture are Emide, Theresa's husband,
Yeah, and Joe, his father.
his father
His
Joe.
father, Joe LeBlanc.
This picture was taken sometime during the 1920s or 30s by an American
Yeah.
tourist and sent back to them. In the picture, you can see the barrels lined up along the wharf. In the barrel is herring. There was a lot of herring that year, the year the picture was taken. Unsure of the exact date. This is a picture of the cove looking west along